Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Joy. My name is Monique Rodriguez. I'm an author, speaker, and a coach, and I help women ignite their inner power so they can live with more peace, passion, and joy. And I'm very excited today. As usual, I bring amazing women in this show. But today I have a very special woman. Her name is Christine. And I say special because it's not only about her passion for her work that stands out, but also she has a very interesting transformational journey that I want you to hear. So, Christine, would you mind to introduce yourself to the audience and let everybody know what you do and what's your story about?
My name is Christine Marmoy. My story stands from a huge transformation. It's a personal journey that I went through. It started many years ago, to be honest with you, but the bulk of it was about 6 years, more or less 6 years ago, when I got sick. We would like to say that you need to go through something very intense or destructive to, decide to change something about your life, and maybe that's what I had to go through. So I got sick. I had a flare of MS and could barely walk. But the worst part was that I was losing my cognitive abilities while I was realizing it. So that was the worst part for me. And so I came across, doing some research, I came across a video from Montel in which he was explaining he was going through the same thing than me, but better and everything. So that gave me, in just a few seconds, I got the inspiration to do something. And I realized that there was something that I could do about it. It was not the end. That gave me hope. Mm-hmm. And from there, I pursued my research. And the first thing I thought was food, because, where we have control on a daily basis is the food intake. So I looked into the food that I was eating. And I've always been a vegetarian. Not by ideology, but because I don't like meat. Mm-hmm. So I was eating organic, but mostly grain-based. So, pasta with everything, rice, sandwich, my favorite sandwich. I mean, everything but meat. And I thought I was eating very good, a lot of vegetables. And by doing some research, I became vegan and raw, and had a blast playing with all that food, making couscous with raw cauliflower and all this. The flavor of the food was just spectacular. I really loved it, but I got better of it a little bit. To make it short, 3 months later, I was able to walk back on the treadmill, and I was back to the gym. So it was perfect. But then I reached the peak, and it fell all apart again. We moved to Mexico. Of course, the pollution was part of the problem, but especially with me. I'm not saying it's the same for everybody. But then I ended up at the emergency room. The more I was sick, the more I juiced, and the more I was sick. And we realized that I had a lot of food allergies. I mean, I'm going to make a distinction. I had a few food allergies and many food intolerances, sensitivities. You mix everything all in the same bag, you end up at the emergency room. That was the problem. My son was going through the same thing, not the same symptoms, but we were sick at the same time for the same reasons. And went through this traditional steps of seeing one doctor, two doctors, a specialist, another specialist. I went to the state because I was living in Mexico at the time, so the states were really close. I went there, didn't help too much. I went to a few seminars and so forth, get some knowledge, because I wanted to understand how come everything I was eating until that point were poison to me. I could not make sense of it. And seeing my son struggling the way he was more than a big why. It was really an engine, like a Formula One that I had. And so going from one doctor to the other, I realized they all had a wonderful idea of what was the problem and a great treatment or the great way to look into the problem and solve it, but it never worked. None of it worked. And when I came down to it, I felt hopeless because I thought, okay, they're all talking about all these, that, and that doesn't work for me. Why? And that's when I decided to look for things myself. Nobody can give me the answer. I'm going to look for it. And fair enough. When you scratch the surface, you read a few things and you come across this different angle of the same things. It starts making sense, and you try. That's what I did: researching, discovering, trying. And my kitchen was my lab for me and my son. And then I realized that among all those allergies, I had also celiac disease. And that is, I have to be wise on why I do what I do. First is that point when I discovered I had celiac disease, which is not, a crazy thing, but the reason why I got it is my point. And the other big reason behind the work I do is we're all so different. And one food is maybe paradise for somebody and poison for another person. It's paradise, hell. It's everything is that relationship of what. And when I see my son, the change in my son, that's my other reason why I do what I do, because I had one way of reacting, my son had another one, and he lost 3 years of academic. In school, he just lost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 years for nothing, no reason. And he was in failure to thrive for 2 years. And the impact of changing a few things for them made all the difference in his life. But the reason why it worked for me, not for my son, is because we went back to basic and we looked for things that worked for us, not for everybody else, for us. And there's no right or wrong way of saying things, but it's all about individuality right now. And I know that some people associate that with a selfish way of life, but it's not selfish. We are all individual. We're all unique. 99% of our DNA is the same, but we have, depending on the scientists, we have between 1% and a bit less of 1% of DNA that is completely different. And the combinations, the variety of combinations that are possible, we are just at the beginning of it. There are so many different combinations still possible. The human race is not about to end. And those differences, you see why, or you understand why certain things work and others don't work. Why does it work for XYZ person? It doesn't work for you. And it's in that individuality that we can really find the solution. And that solution doesn't have to be something very invasive or aggressive, like chemotherapy or whatever. When it's needed, it's needed. I'm in no position to argue about that. But what I mean to say is that when you have to look into what your body tells you, what it is that you need to make it run smoothly. And the other point, to conclude my presentation, is that also what I realized when you are, after you understand that you have 2 or 3 autoimmune disease, you understand that it's a lot easier to pay to avoid a problem than to pay to fix the problem. Preventive medicine is more often seen as a very expensive endeavor, but honestly, it is the best way to spend your money, because afterwards, when the problem arises, it's more expensive to fix it, and you can't always fix it. So that would be the other thing, the core meaning of what I do.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. So many lessons and so much of inspiration. I think you brought so many interesting points. And I want to go back into the fact that you mentioned individuality, and that's where I see the world is going. We are going into oneness, I feel, but we think looking inwards, what makes us unique. And so something very important you said is about diversity and how this one size doesn't fit all. Like, that's why we have different sizes of shoes, dresses. And why do we think that with one specific solution we will fix all our problems? And I think one of the keys that you mentioned for you, obviously you had a wake-up call when your health started to something happened in your health that it made you aware that something was going on in your body. You were looking for answers, like we all do in life, and it's good to listen to others. Obviously there are amazing professionals out there, but also how I want to bring awareness on how we sometimes give our power away to others and we don't listen to ourselves. And this is in all areas of our life. And for me, what you mentioned was very important for you to, so you felt there was hope. And I think sometimes we go knock one door, knock the second door, and we feel, okay, there's no solution. But you kept going on and you kept fighting for your health. And also because you had a stronger reason, you had a why. So that why is very important. And I want to bring that awareness is also in life when sometimes we don't have that motivation or that strength, is because the why is not strong enough. And I don't know what's the biggest why you can have than your child, you know, or someone else. So maybe that was the reason for you to really fuel that eagerness to keep looking and researching, not only for you but for your son, and also believing that it's part of your responsibility. So you were taking responsibility and say, okay, I'm going to take this on my own hands, because yeah, it's true, you need to look for professionals and seeking outside, but we also have the power to listen to ourselves. And you say something very important, that you need to listen to your body, or you were listening to your body and building a relationship back to yourself and to your body, and that willingness to explore as well. You were exploring, so I love what you say about your kitchen was your lab, and you were not afraid to test and try and mess around, and that's what children do. Again, I always talk about childhood, go back to childhood, but it's true, with that sense of curiosity, that sense of, well, what if I do this? Maybe this will fix it, you know? And sometimes we just, oh, you know, the doctors say this, so that might be true. And, you know, I want to bring awareness that doctors are just human beings as we are, and they are very good professionals, but there is certain amount of responsibility that also lies on ourselves. So I do love your story, because now you only know by experience, and you are in a very good position now, helping other people and keep researching. So I want to talk more about it, because this is where I want to get more in depth into the work that you do, and how are you helping people, and also your views on where we are going with nutrition as well in the future. But I have this beautiful, I know I told you I like angel cards and I'm all about angels. And Friday, I got a very strong connection with Archangel Raphael. I have this deck. I think you told me you have this deck as well. It's the Archangel Raphael. And this Archangel and I, we were working very closely when I came to the UK. This was the first deck I got with angels. And I was giving healing in a voluntary manner in Hampstead. And that was my first contact with other realities, that we are more than this body, we are energy as well. And I think I don't want to go into depths of other realms, but I do believe that the future is going to a place where we understand that there is more than what we see at the moment. And I think that goes with nutrition as well. We have certain limitations on the knowledge, and I think science all the time they prove that, oh, we were wrong, or maybe there is something else there. So with that, I want to bring energy into the place, and I want to ask Raphael as well, or this archangel, where we need to focus at the moment in terms of our health, because he's all about healing and health, and maybe bring that conversation as well in this moment, because I feel like I love to work with synchronicity lately, being in the present moment, and also allow ourselves to believe, you know, because if you don't believe that you will heal, most probably you won't. And if you don't believe in magic, magic won't happen in your life. So do more research. You see, it's all about my lovely Christine, because one thing that stands out about you is that you never stop researching. You are always seeking for more, and you are always willing to go forward to find more. And I think this is beautiful. So it says there, God and Archangel Raphael, thank you for clearly and gently leading me to the information that I need to know for my well-being. Please give me the courage to be assertive as I take charge of my healthcare needs. So you see, this is all about, again, doing your research. So if there's something in your life that doesn't seem going well in your health or in other areas, you look for answers and you don't find answer, keep researching, keep looking like Christine does and did in the past, because if we stop, we will never find our answers. If we just give up hope, we won't definitely find the answer. So what's your take on this? How do you really keep moving forward? What, apart from your son, because let everybody know, where are you at the moment? What kind of work are you doing at the moment, and where do you see yourself going? Because I know you are studying at the moment, and you have a big vision for the work that you are doing. and a vision for the future as well of what you do. So can you explain a little bit more to other people what's your work and why you are so passionate about it? Because I'm a passionate person, but I think you are as much or even more passionate about your work and your willingness to help people.
Oh, thank you. That's a great compliment. Well,
It's true.
I'm a master in genetics. And next to that, I'm also studying nutritional genomics, which we call also nutrigenomics.
Mm-hmm.
It's like understanding the root of the problem through genetics, and then nutrigenomics is how can we address the problem using bioactive compounds that are included in food or supplements. So it's a bit like understanding the problem and envisioning a solution. That's the two main things that I'm studying. But there are other things that I'm studying at the same time and research work that I do. Within my clinic, I focus on the work that I do with children with learning disabilities that goes from just being, having difficulties reading, for example. So it starts through allergies to up the full scale of ASD, so children on the spectrum, ADHD and the spectrum. That's for the part that I work with children. And adults, it's mostly the same thing. Don't on the autism spectrum. I don't work with adults at that level. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone coming to me for this, but usually people come to me because they have autoimmune disease and they want another approach. They don't want
Mm-hmm.
to go for medicine and so forth, or they've tried it all, doesn't work for them, or they didn't even start it and they just want to go directly for a less invasive alternative of treatment. Or some people are quite desperate because they don't know what's wrong with them. They are trying to find a solution, and the traditional system failed them at some level because they haven't been able to find or to identify what was a problem with them, their health. So that's the kind of people that I work with. So in those adults, I see Hashimoto's disease, chronic fatigue. I got a lawyer with schizophrenia. Um, I get a lot of gut issue and people who don't know what's going on, but they're bloated, they're sick, and they don't know what to do. H. pylori, I got a few of those people who knew they had a problem with H. pylori, got tested here with the breath test, the traditional test, but you need to have a lot of it to have a positive test. And they came to me, we did a DNA test, a stool test, but it's a DNA-based one. And then they had H. pylori, so we were able to implement a natural protocol. It's a longer one, but you avoid the antibiotics. So this is the kind of people I work with. The reason why I ended up studying, there's a bit of a story behind that I'd like to share, because I think it will clarify a bit, because I surprised myself there. Initially, I studied everything that had to do with holistic medicine, and I was going for a doctorate in holistic medicine to become a holistic doctor. That was the path I had chosen. And then I realized midway, so after my BA studying for holistic medicine, I realized that there was not that much difference between the holistic doctor and the allopathic doctor. They thought they both sides. I'm not saying in general, but
Mm.
on both sides thought that they had the ultimate truth, and they were actually having the same approach.
Mm-hmm.
One pill, but for the holistic doctors was a few supplements. And I thought it was not right, because I did that for at least 2 years for myself. Didn't work, so I knew there had to be something else. Then I came across an article on behavioral genetics, which explained the behavior would be any kind of traits that you present, any kind of outside reflection of what's going on inside. And it was an example in schools. They were showing that when we always thought that the level of schools or the way schools were taught were making a difference in those children if they were thriving or failing.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years ago, and then they realized, with the help of UNESCO and everything, when they leveled out the level of academic study across countries, that the more the level was equivalent to different countries, well, there were more disparity between, a bigger disparity between the kids who were thriving in school and those who were failing. And so we call that a shared environment. So with the same shared environment, we ended more differences than before. It was not supposed to be that way. It was supposed to use those differences. So what we realized, what those scientists realized, is that there was another thing, and that other thing was genes. That I'm not saying, and I'm not implying, and nobody's implying that you have one gene for the math, one gene for being able to read, one thing for something. Not that way, because we have synergy. Everything works in synergy. So you don't have just one gene doing one thing. It's usually a cluster of genes helping to do something because of something else in relations with a third thing. So you see there are too many things that are involved. But by realizing this, reading that article, I was actually thinking, okay, that's exactly the way I think. So I need to take it from the beginning. And the beginning for me was the genetic aspect. And why? It's the big why I was telling you, the big factor with my celiac disease. My mom had celiac disease. She got diagnosed 30 years after suffering with the problem. 30 years later, she got diagnosed. At the time of the diagnosis, I was living in the States, and she called me and she explained to me what it was. I had no idea because at the time I was in finance, so I was like very far from what I was doing. But I remember her saying to me, and it never even crossed my mind when she was explaining to me the story, but she said to me, "Don't worry, it's not hereditary. You're not gonna get it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But then, fast forward 20 years later, not even, maybe almost 20 years later, I ended up with celiac disease. I got tested a few times, blood tests for sensitivity to gluten, which was always negative. Yeah, fair enough. I was not eating gluten anymore. But then I did a genetic test, and I had the predisposition. I'm at a high risk, and this is why preventive medicine is very important. This is why I started with genetics, and it's very important for me. It's because would I have known at the time that I had that susceptibility to develop celiac disease because I was genetically imprinted by it. That doesn't mean that for sure I would get it. There was a way I had the predisposition, but knowing this, it was avoidable. I didn't avoid this. So I did everything to make sure we developed disease. 99% of my diet was gluten-based. So I ended up with it. At 40, I ended up with celiac disease. Now, knowing this, I tested all my children, knowing that it goes most likely on the X chromosome, so it's given from the mom, so it's me. I checked all my kids. Fair enough, they all have the same susceptibility, and they all have the sensitivity to gluten. The anti-gliadin test that we can do very easily, a blood test, it's covered by all the insurances in the world. So, knowing this, I explained to them because they are grown up. I said to them, this is your choice. If you keep eating the way you do, you're going to end up the way I am. And then everything will be taken away from you. Or you make the choice now and you change the way you eat right now when it's time to avoid the problem, and you won't end up like me. You will be able to have a normal life. And my daughter does it, my son no.
It's a choice.
It's his choice. My daughter does it. My youngest has no choice anyway, so it's. But is that this is another thing. At the time, it was already in the literature that there was a susceptibility that could be given gender. So mom to daughter, dad to son. It was already documented, but that specially subjective did not know. So she didn't tell my mom, or she told the opposite to my mom, and my mom told me. So that's why I'm saying it would have been easier to do the test before when you have doubt and there's a chance or a risk, depending on how you want to look at it, beforehand, and you avoid the problem. It would have been less expensive for me to just avoid gluten right up front than
yes.
Because of it. So that's the one point. And when I understood this, I was like, oh my gosh, there is a genetic factor that we cannot be blind. We can't just avoid it. We need to understand it better. And the same thing with everything that's going on in the gut. The gut, everything everything that goes wrong starts there, or at least is implies there.
Mm.
I'm not so sure yet, but it involves the gut. But I can tell you that some genes affect bacteria in our gut, and vice versa. Bacteria in our gut impacts our genes. Which one starts the process? Nobody knows. We don't know it. Far away from knowing everything. But the fact of knowing that it can be one way or the other, it's already good enough for me to research more into not just the gut, but because there too, I have good results for some people. Other people with exactly the same problem, the protocol doesn't work as good. With me, it doesn't work at all. So I knew there was something else. So that's why I decided to go back into genetics. It's not. It allows you to. It's not something that you could readily apply into your clinical practice. What it does to me, it just gives me the tool, the knowledge. And my patient those tests, and I see the result. It allows me to understand what's behind it, and to understand also how the individual biochemistry function. And that is really helpful because it's not just giving a supplement of this or supplement of that that's going to work. Because if you give that without understanding that there are pieces missing, and not to know which tests you have to do, and those traditional tests don't provide you this kind of information. So you see everything. You have to really understand how body works.
Yes.
And to have a chance to identify some ways to fix a problem or to cope with a problem. So that's why the genetic is for me to understand where it starts, or at least how we are born. We are born this way. Then,
Yes.
Our environment, the way we live, the way we think, what we eat, and everything makes or imposes on or creates some changes. But at least we are born in a certain way. So we need to go back to that basic. But then nutrigenomics is because it's the science of how foods can actually impact the expression of our gene. We have the genes that we have, but they can be on or they can be off. So they can be active or inactive. Sometimes it's a good thing for them to be active, and they are. Sometimes they are active and they should be turned off. Now, how can food interact to influence that? How can we use food to turn a gene off when it's on, and vice versa? That's a bit of it is in a nutshell. It doesn't really work exactly like this because it's more complex than that. But in a nutshell, this is what it is. And to me, it's like the solution. So understanding the root cause or understanding the basic of the human body was very important to me. But understand or having an idea of how to fix it without having to use heavy medications and so forth was very important for me. Now, for the defense of general medicine, because I've researched so much that nothing is money in this life, nothing. Everything, 50 Shades of Grey, this is life. Because this is what it is. It's a 50 Shades of Grey. And I love the concept of holistic medicine, and I love all the fathers of holistic medicine, all those people 100 years ago discovered different things, how to use bacteria, to use plants, and so forth. They knew what they were doing, and it worked. Not also it works as much today because we are more toxic today than we were then. And when the cell is full of toxins, it creates like a barrier around the cell, so nothing goes through. That toxin creates that nurture that inflammation that creates a barrier around the cell and nothing goes through. So that's why I'm a bit concerned about just using that. And maybe sometimes traditional medicine is a better road. So like you said, people have to
research
listen to the doctors and question everything and research and go for second advice, opinion, but not much from the same doctor. Try something else. The information. This is your body. This is your life. You have 100%, on your body, and you have right to decide what's better for your body. But you have to be responsible. You can make the decision, absolutely, but an intelligent decision. So to make a decision, you can't just refuse something because you've heard or you've read in Time magazine that was bad. You really need to research and understand. I'm not saying you have to go and take a biochemistry class. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to research in depth. to make the right decision for your body. And because this is where I am right now. PubMed is my best friend. I just like I became so good at it. I'm blown away. It's a pat on my head, on my shoulder, because a few years ago I had to read that because that was the only thing that that I could find, and it was like a nightmare for me because all that lingo, medical lingo, and everything, and the way those academic and scientific documents are written, it's just like it's a job just to be able to write it. It's it was terrible for me. So now I developed a kind of easiness to go through it and be able to see things. And I see a few problems there. There are studies out there. They did trials on different vitamins or plants to see if they would be the perfect cure for cancer, for example, or cure asthma or cardiovascular disease. I mean, there's a lot of things out there. Some of those studies see a benefit, a research. Other studies don't see any benefit. And you have a third class of studies, they see an increase in the problem that they initially tried to cure or to reduce. And I was a bit desperate because I was like, okay, so who is right?
Yeah.
There's a difference for me, the reader, who I need to listen. What's the solution here? Who did the study the way that reflects the real outcome? Because
the truth.
Time, you know that very well. The result may not be the same. And so there are a few things to take into account. And I don't have the answer yet, but there are a few things to take into account. The way a study is designed, it is designed for a certain number of individuals with exactly the same set of circumstances, the same set of biochemical pathways or the way the body reacts and so forth. So it's like it's made for a sample of the population that like if they were all clones of each other, and we know it's not. So, but does that serve the purpose of proving that those supplements and vitamins work, or does it the opposite? I don't know yet, but the way a study has to be done, I believe, is not very representative of the way our body works because we are all different. Yeah. But to make a study, you can't just make a study of 100 people, different people, and one next to the other. But it's almost what we would need to do. But the result most likely would be, okay, well, broccoli works for person A with the same blueprint than A, and carrot works for person C. But we know that we're never going to find another C or another A, right? So it's counterproductive or counterintuitive. So where is the truth? Again, I guess in the 50 Shades of Grey. So somewhere in between. I am not savvy enough to come up with a new way of making those studies. But the point I want to raise here is that because you read something doesn't make it true.
Correct.
Because you read it on PubMed doesn't make it like a Bible text. Question it. Go and look for the extreme opposite. That's what I do. Because when I see something that works, okay, there must be a study.
Yes.
And I look at it has been done. Who did it? Who paid for it? It's all those questions.
Who paid for it as well? Yeah.
Because if it's paid by
pharmaceutical companies or
that they want to make a point, so of course it's going to be a good thing. So that's all the questions that I ask and all the points that I look, and everybody can do this. And I'm not saying that before you take aspirin you need to look all this. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are facing a big question in terms of your health, something very big, it's worth, I think, the time to research the problem and see what is out there, what are the different possibilities, and what really works versus what doesn't work. And then once you know, what are you willing to try?
Yes.
What are you gonna give it a try to? Because you've read one person say it works, the other study says it doesn't work. Are you willing to try it anyway? What are the side effects? What are the consequences if it doesn't work? Or if it works, is it not? Is it gonna break something else? It's like an IT. When they launch a new program, they fix something and they break a few other things in the back. So that's exactly the same thing with our body. But that's my point. Research, and double guess. Question everything. especially what you see in your stream in Facebook.
Hmm.
Because a lot of things that I said, and I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was reading it was for me like a Bible.
Yeah.
They said it was true. It was published. It was true, and I realized that it was not true. The way, and if you just read the headlines, also, I'm just giving you my experience.
Yeah, no, but it's very important to talk by experience,
Yeah, where I realized I was wrong. I was wrong. You read the highlights, okay, the title. The title said something. Okay, well, that's good. I put some on my wall not long ago, I think it was last week, a study about curcumin. They were saying that curcumin dissolved or get rid of fluoride in the brain. Okay, that was the title. But then inside the body of the article, they referred to a study that had said that.
Oh, okay.
Which is great because I love those articles when they can link it to a study. When you look at the study, it says it reduced the toxicity from fluoride. Did not get rid of fluoride. Fluoride, it was still there. But you see how it is in terms
Yes.
of, so if you just read the title, it may be misleading at some point. Now I got to the point where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, how can you do that? Because I reached the point where I can question this. But before, a few years ago, there have been like curcumin. It's gonna get rid of the fluoride in your brain. See, so that's why you really have to be vigilant and go. Don't just read the headline. The headline.
Yeah.
Just go inside the question and see, is there a study out there to prove this? Now, it's not another thing. Also, it's not because there's no study that it's not true. It's just maybe nobody had
Yeah.
wanted to do it, or there was no money to raise to conclude or to do that research. So no research doesn't mean it doesn't work or it's not true. It just means that nobody put the money to do the study or nobody wanted to do it. So that's all it means, really, because it's like everything else. It's a matter of money. A lot of people, there are a lot of great researchers out there with brilliant ideas of research that the conclusion would be helpful for the world, for civilization, for human beings. But there's nobody wants to put money in there. So that's the way it is. But the responsibility, the responsibility of questioning everything and not just take everything at face value. Absolutely.
I love it.
It's the information world. So information is weaponized everywhere for every objectives that exist. So use it, but research it and take it with a grain of salt.
I love everything you said, and it goes back to this. Yeah, taking back your power, really, like question everything, do your research, and something that I was when I listen to you is all about being open-minded. I don't know if you resonate with this, but because sometimes we have done things, or in the society things have been done in a certain way, and you never explore another possibility like an alternative therapy or a different approach to nutrition, and we have resistance to being open-minded to explore, to really allow ourselves. For me, it's all about expansion in life, and the same. Sometimes when we want to expand, we come up with fears of, oh, this is not known path, so am I willing to take? For me, I always talk about risk. It's not about risking your life, but sometimes if your life depends on this, maybe you want to be open-minded, explore, and allow yourself to play and keep researching. And what you say about knowledge is power. I always heard that, but knowledge without applying it into your daily life is useless. And also, yeah, we sometimes we know a lot of things, but we don't do it. Like, for instance, you might know that it's healthy, and I'm guilty of that. You know very well, like that sometimes we fall into the trap of self-sabotage or stuff like this, where we know this is not good for our health and still we do it. So I wanted to bring a question with you, because when I talk about self-sabotaging or not taking risk or fears of doing something differently or taking responsibility, it goes very aligned with emotions and some things that goes on the back of our minds. And I don't know if you see any, I think you do because I worked with you in the past, but like, do you see any relationship with food and emotions? And what would you say to people like, to avoid going into the trap of just making wrong choices. Not, I mean, choices are choices. Like we said, your kids had their choice. We all have our choice. It's our responsibility and our choice to take back our power, to question things, to not give the power to the first doctor that comes and says this is the truth, because we have seen over and over again in society, in our history, that science came with the truth, and then few hundred years after it was not true. So what's the truth? I think the truth is inside ourselves, listening our intuition, but also being responsible of when a trigger comes and wants to sabotage. And last week I was exploring a lot about self-sabotage, because I found myself in some situations where I was sabotaging myself with my food choices, consciously and unconsciously. But I had the sense that I wanted to be nourished. And some days it's fine to overindulge in something, but when it becomes a habit and it's not healthy for us and we know it, would you say there is something we can do to link that emotion with the food, or what's your strategy? I know you take very good health, take care of your health very well, but what would you say to people to be aware on emotions and food, and why we choose certain foods based on certain emotions?
I don't feel I have enough knowledge to tell you, but I do agree. I know
Hmm.
there's science behind it, that we pick certain items of food, like comfort food or everything carb based, certain amount of
Mm-hmm.
rest, everything. I am aware of that. I don't really work with that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's beyond the scope of what I do. But what I always include in my work with people is their mind, because there's nothing you can do to fix the body if the mind is rotten. So the first thing I tell them is that they need to, because when you feel sick, you're stressed by the fact that you're sick, you don't know why, and you don't know how to get better. So that stress is cortisol, and it makes everything worse, and it adds
Mm.
on more problems. And there is a relationship with the food they're going to eat at that level for sure. But with the work that I do, the fact that I try to help them find a way to deal with their stress. So some
Mm-hmm.
people that's running, others that's gonna be just to go golfing, or that's gonna be read a book,
Yeah.
in the backyard. There's no right or wrong way to go or to do
Yeah.
it. It's just what works for you, what relaxes you, what allows you to not think, because you always think,
Yeah.
So that would be what I do. Um, but from another aspect of my work, working with allergies, I know that before you can trust your body in terms of what your body needs, you need to detox the body. So there's no long sickness. The
Mm.
body is full of toxin. The body, it's an addiction. The body is addicted to the toxin. So the body is going to
Yes.
ask you
Correct.
for that piece of cheese.
Mm.
And you're like, oh, no, my body is asking for cheese. I need to eat to feed my body what it needs, and it needs cheese. No, it's because most likely you have a candida overgrowth or another kind of
Yep.
bacteria imbalance, and that it requires that, or you have lactose intolerance, or your body has been addicted to the chemical reaction
Yep.
that influences that intolerance. So that addiction will make you desire the food. So when people come to me, the first thing I ask, or among the first questions that I ask, is there food that you could not live without? If you had to just put one item in your
Mm.
fridge, what would that be? Usually that gives me an identification or an idea of maybe. And if along the conversation I identify other things, that okay, maybe there's a family group here, so maybe we need to test for this, so maybe let's remove that item altogether, because it's a cheap way to see if there's a problem with that group, food group. And then if it's not, well, it was not the case, and there's no money spent or anything. But from my standpoint, this is how I look. I can't live without this. So I think
Yeah.
a psychologist or somebody working with emotion might see it as an emotional link that needs to
Mm.
be on an emotional level. But that's not what I do.
Yes.
Now, not because I see it as an addiction that there's no emotion involved there. There are emotions involved, absolutely 100%.
Mm.
I fully agree with this. It's just not what I do.
Yes.
But I've already asked people, or I've already suggested, not asked, but suggested to some of my patients to consider seeing somebody.
Yeah.
Because I told them I can fix the machine with you.
Yeah.
But if we don't fix the mind, it's pointless, because at one point, if it's a fight between the body and the mind, you win.
Correct.
So that's what I've already done. So yes, there is definitely a link between emotions and food, or the consumption of our food.
Yes.
But that's not where I work.
But I think I love what you say about, and I totally agree about detoxing, because we cannot put, like, you know, if you want a beautiful garden and your grass is all, you know, covering up the flowers, you need to cut the grass, and that's why I do with my coaching as well. I do work very much into the subconscious mind with NLP coaching. I don't like to get stuck in the past, but I think it's interesting to know our triggers. And one thing that you mentioned about stress, I think, because one thing that was you say about your why, for me, my why was getting out of my stress, of my overwhelm, and taking my power. And stress is a very a very interesting thing that triggers with many underlying emotions. And I will say, I love what you say. Simple way sometimes is just to relax, go into a relaxation mode, and you can tap into your, because I'm all about joy, and sometimes it's when we are stressed, it's because we are not tapping too much, especially as women, into pleasure, relaxation, allowing ourselves to play, and ask ourselves what brings me joy. And if you're in a state of joy, I think joy and stress cannot exist. It's impossible. Even even if you're a very by nature passionate or nervous person like I am, in the essence of willing to take your power back, you learn how to stand in your ground and how you take control of your life, and that goes together. I think there is a very much dance that happens between food and mind, and I love what you say about bringing that awareness to people when maybe, you know, they need to detox their food. It's a good time as well to detox their mind. And I know there are programs even that they are called Detox Your Mind, or really journal on how they. That's something I did when I did that program in March, you know, to lose weight. I was journaling, I was reflecting a lot, and what came up for me very naturally, I have the ability to transmute or tap into emotions. That's one of my specialties. But I feel like for me, the key to really transform yourself in your authentic self is detox your mind, bring back the good stuff, the good food, and detox your mind and detox your body, and bring back that pure state. For me, it's like purifying yourself at all levels. And when you purify, I think what remains is the innocence of like a child. We are born pure. We might have our genes, and that's why I think the work you do is very very important, because you are born already with a genetic predisposition that it's unknown, or it's known, but we need a specialist, or we need to take the responsibility to look at it, to prevent, because prevention is better than going there and try to fix it. I think preventive, and with that knowledge, then you are responsible, and then you have a choice to go and maybe do some changes on that, you know. And then obviously, I think parents also, it's very very important to bring awareness to parents, because maybe they have children with some learning disabilities or some allergies, and they don't know where to look at, and there is a alternative, and there is hope, and I think that's the future as well, where we allow ourselves to be more open-minded, do our own research at the individual level. And I know that there is no one size that fits all, but I wanted to ask you, for people who right now they don't, you know, they don't have the knowledge yet on the DNA level, or they want to just start tomorrow, maybe looking into detoxing or taking their power back in their hands on the foods, maybe a few tips on basic way of eating which is going to automatically help them to be with more energy, to feel better. And maybe with that, maybe some emotions will come up, and then they can handle that as well in a different level. So in terms of detoxing, some basic stuff, what would you say to people they can start tomorrow doing differently?
Yeah, I believe that the most simple way, I mean, the simpler it is, the better it is, because if you make it too long, that people don't follow it and they get overwhelmed and it's counterproductive. So I always say to people, you can start today, just one thing in almost every domain of life. Food. We're not asking yet to remove anything or to cut anything, not even gluten, but just go organic.
Super important.
From, GMO or toxin-based food, if it's even not GMO-based, but you have so many pesticides and everything in traditional food. So if you go for whatever you eat, take the organic version of it, the cleanest version of it. That's going to make already a huge difference, because like you said, you need to clear the pathways, the pathways of communication, with a higher power. It starts with food, because
yes,
otherwise it's fog, and it's a fog that is everywhere on all those cells. Nothing can go through. So food. Then your mind, pick something. You can be reading every night something inspirational, or watching an inspirational video every morning while you have breakfast, or it could be just taking 5 minutes a day to just not think about anything, or journaling like you did. Anything that is. The one thing that you'll stick to it, because the important point is that you have to stick to it.
Consistency.
Consistency is more important than the quantity of what you do. Then a physical activity. It can be going to work, walking instead of driving, if it's possible. It could be every day you're going to go 5 times up and down the stairs. No matter what time it is, but you're going to go 5 times up and down the stairs. It could be your class that you're taking, but you're taking sporadically. Well, no, this time you're going to go every week. It doesn't matter what it is, but just one thing that you're going to stick to it. And the last one that I like to add is be grateful for yourself and for others. And the way to do that is that try at least before you go to bed, or in the morning when you go about your breakfast. Doesn't matter when it is better for you. 3 things that you're grateful for in your life that day, or that morning, or for the day, the day you spend, if it's in the evening. And then 3 ways that you can pay it forward. So it can be a smile that you give to or a nice conversation with a cab driver, or it can be the old lady that you carry your bag. And whatever it is, the opportunity will come. You don't have to think about it. It will present itself. But 3 people you pay it forward to. And if you do this, it's really simple, really. You're going to be a lot happier. Believe me, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm in such a good mood. Everything is so fine. Everything is going so smoothly in my life. Yeah, because you set up the base. The base is, to build that new life on. And it didn't cost anything. A bit more money because you buy organic and it's not GMO based. Well, but that's okay. You just don't eat as much. This is one thing. When you eat organic food, you don't need to eat as much, because you feel faster, because it's nutrient dense. It's rich. When you eat GMO, it's empty. It's void of any nutrients in there. So 20 minutes later, you want to eat more because you're hungry. So feed the machinery right, and you're more hungry. So you eat less anyway because you eat less. And then the mind, you take care of the machine. The fuel of the machine is the food, and then you pay it forward with it. Being grateful for what you have is not selfish. It's when you're grateful toward yourself, you're thanking life for whatever life gave you. And when you pay it forward, you help somebody else to feel it, because when you do this, you make somebody else's day and you make yours at the same time. So it's a win-win situation.
I love it.
Easy.
It's a give and take relationship. I love what you say, because that brings flow, and I love the gratitude. I do this very often, and I think for me, what you said about paying forward, that's beautiful as well. I think sometimes giving to others brings immediate happiness already, and we don't do it often. For me, I smile a lot. I love to smile to people and give compliments as well. So if I see a lady with a beautiful hair, I just say it, I'm very honest. But it's beautiful to admire other people's beauty. And yesterday I went to a workshop. It was all about Archangel Jophiel, and what we did as well is there was an activity of someone will be in the middle of the circle with the eyes closed, and the rest of people will be looking at that person with the intention of admiring their beauty. And I think sometimes we miss the opportunity to admire the beauty of life, which is part of being grateful for being alive, and also being grateful for yourself as well, which I think, like you say, we don't do it sometimes. And the power of three, like three things are not very difficult to do, but still sometimes we are too much in our heads thinking about what we don't have. And if we look around, we have so much beauty already that it's amazing. And when you tap into that energy of beauty, gratitude, I think you feel already better. So maybe the choices of food are better, and you are like, oh, I'm not going to have that, convenient food because I know it's full of chemicals. So I think when you are nourishing your body with chemicals or toxic stuff, or not very, because GMO, yeah, it might be cheaper now, but maybe you pay the consequences later, because there is so many studies as well of the consequences of that. So that's horrifying, but people don't do the research enough, and then we need to go back into research and into bringing yourself into awareness and responsibility. And with that, I want to be grateful for your presence in my life because I admire you so much. I think you are doing an amazing job, and I think the more we tap into that individuality and we work at the level of bringing that awareness that we are all unique in all senses, not only in the way our body is built and our genes and how we need to nourish our body, but also how unique we are in our talents and how much of value we can bring to the world. When you experience a situation, in your case your health, and you took your power back, you recover your health, and now you're helping other people doing that because of your experience. So it's not only about the research that you read, but you apply it to yourself, and then you come from a place of authenticity, and that what, obviously we don't have all the answers. What worked for you might not work for another person, but it's the willingness to be open to explore. For me, it's all about life is an adventure, and we all need to explore like children, like messing around until we find what brings joy and happiness. Same as your profession, sometimes you can be stuck in an office. You and I, we were in corporate environments. I still work with the NHS with the medication process, but that's why I feel, for me, I'm so passionate to bring an alternative for people to not end up in a hospital with a reaction on medications, which are having a place. But I think sometimes we end up in a situation of powerless because we didn't take power back when we had the chance. Like, you are eating sweets, and it's not good for you, and you're overweight, and you keep going in that trap because deep inside you have a lack of self-love. So maybe it's a time for you to be open-minded, take responsibility, and start choosing simple things like organic food, beautiful fruits and vegetables, and for people who eat meat, and I recently started to eat a little bit more of meat because I've been kind of away from meat for 2 months, and I think it's listening to your body. My body was asking, like, maybe you should go back to eat some protein. I was like, okay, respecting. It's all about respecting. So if you eat food with respect, you are grateful for what you eat, the energy is different as well. So I love what you say about giving back and kind of pay it forward, because every time we give something, I believe the universe will send it back in a way or another. And if you give love, you will receive love for sure in return in one way or another. So I'm so grateful for having you here and sharing your wisdom and your expertise and also your journey. And I would like people to get to know a little bit more on how they can contact you if they want to work with you and get to know their genes, finally, like facing their genes 101, and getting to have some power in their hands, knowing what it's there, so they can prevent. That's very important. And I recently did that work with you, and it's very revealing, and also it's very comforting as well when you see like which because it's not all about finding which genes are bad and what we can also prevent, but also sometimes acknowledging the good things that you have, like that predisposition for disease, but also which strengths you have, and that gives you more confidence as well in how you go around with life and your choices. So can you let everybody know how they can reach out and get a consultation with you, and how they can find you?
Okay, so the easiest way is by email. So it's info arrobas detoxallergyclinic.com. That's the email, and the website is obviously the same, detoxallergyclinic.com. Everything is right there. There's a form, but you can also contact me directly by email or by Messenger. So also something that people are using.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I wanted to just clarify one thing, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Beside for markers, very specific markers, disease markers that I could request a very specific DNA-based test for people. The easiest one for people to get is the 23andMe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the reason why that one is already a good base is because they provide you with the raw data, and that's what I work with.
Yeah.
I don't to see whatever the profile they give you, and if you are susceptible to Alzheimer, Parkinson, whatever, that the person sees it right away from the platform, because I think in the UK you have access to the health report. That
Yes. Yes.
Europe don't have access to that.
Mm-hmm.
But me, I use just the raw data. It's a file that you get automatically with it. And in that raw data, it gives me all the SNPs. So it's all the mutations that are on the genes that are either totally 100% normal, like everybody else in the world, or either they are not like everybody else in the world. But that doesn't mean they're bad. There's no bad, per se, there's no bad gene.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no bad expression of genes.
Okay.
Factors. There are a lot of many other things that play a role. So, but that would be the best way, because it's the cheapest way. I'm always trying to find the best price quality ratio for people, except when it's really for specific disease. Do I have a predisposition, a genetic predisposition? So that would be a different test. But in that case, people can get already a lot. Then, just by the raw information, I can provide diet, the best food for them, based on the genetic blueprint, and taking into account allergies or intolerances or sensitivities, because those can be either acquired but be silent and just come up because of environment, triggers of the susceptibility turned on, or it can be something that was acquired because of the consequences of something else. So there are many variables that take into account, but a diet is just as good as what your machinery is supposed to get, but provided the condition at the time. So those are sensitivity. So that's why it's different than just running your DNA from one of those websites. And
yes, correct.
It's going to give you exactly what your genes are giving you. It's based on research articles that I have also, that says, okay, most people, 86% of the population with that variance have that sensitivity to fat, for example. That's the kind of thing. But it won't tell you if you have lactose intolerance, or if you have this, or if you have a sensitivity to salicylate. It won't tell you that. So that's why the depth of what I do is a lot more personalized than whatever those tests can provide you online. They're a good starting point if you know that you have no sensitivity or no problem at all. But if you want to go to that level of making sure you have the right food for you, you need to go a bit deeper.
So thank you so much. Yeah, that was very interesting. I will put your details below my video as well, for people to contact you, and if they want to get a consultation, get to know more like how they can start taking their power back and getting to know their genes and getting to know what's the best approach for them. Obviously, as we say, there is no one size fits all, and looking at the individual level is the best way. But we have given some basics on how you can take your power and life back from tomorrow. and obviously the simple the better, and obviously always be open to new ways of doing things, because if you keep doing the things the way you always did it, you will get the same results. So what we want is to improve our results and improve our health. And even if you have good health, there's always a next level, and it's always that place where you might not know what can be going wrong. So prevention is always the key, I think. And I really appreciate you having a chat with me today, giving people like very real example on how you just can take your health back and also help others along the way when you do your research, and never keep always keeping your options open, never close yourself, and always willing to go deeper into things. So thank you so much, Christine. Do you have any final words before we finish?
Well, I would just say that this is the analogy I like to use about, individuality versus collectivity. Is that imagine that we are all connected. We all know that. Imagine that we are, all of us, we are like a big pearl necklace.
Yes.
So we're all connected by that thread, right? But then imagine that some of the pearl are starting to get gray and with shadows on it, or they are starting to lose shape and being broken or rotten. Well, the entire necklace is not gonna look pretty, and at one point it may even break. So that's our responsibility. We are responsible for that spot that we represent, because that spot has a meaning for the entire whole, for the full necklace. So we have a responsibility toward everybody to maintain our body and to be in great shape for the greater good of the entire world. That's the way I say it.
I think that's beautiful, because I totally believe that. That's why I work with women's leadership, but it's all about inner leadership. And with the change that we do with ourselves, we can impact the world, because we are all connected, as you say. So imagine if we are able to have positive thoughts, we are respecting our bodies like a temple, making the best to be the best version of ourselves at all levels. It's not only impacting our life, but it reflects in our energy, and it reflects to maybe inspiring someone else to do that, and it becomes huge effect, and then we can really transform the world. I do believe my vision is we can really transform the world by just taking that responsibility. And how beautiful picture you just put about the analogy with the necklace, because I believe it's all where I was talking about beauty, bringing that beauty in the world. So what do we want? Do we want that beautiful necklace shining bright, or do we want to have that world that still, I think this necklace that we have, this world we have, still has some of the pearls needs to be a bit polished, and the best way is to be that pearl ourselves. So eventually we'll have a beautiful necklace, and I love it. You see, I have this shiny necklace. So I love that analogy. Thank you so much, Christine, for being here, and I look forward to see you once I'm back in Barcelona. Thank you so much.
Me over there in London.
London, yeah. Thank you so much. Bye, love.
Thank you. Bye.